everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Happy Tuesday. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm back at it with yet another video, and today we're talking all things Venus entering into the sign of Pisces. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Click the bell button below if you want to see more of my content on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays, where I use tarot and astrology to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. While you're here, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Consider sharing this on your socials. While you're there, follow me on X at BTV Astro and drop me a comment below and let me know where Venus is moving through your chart and what beautiful things you are starting to see over the next couple of weeks. I think we could all use some good news. I'm actually really looking forward to this ingress. It's kind of like the quiet before the storm, and it's definitely going to soften some of the more intense energies that we're going to be seeing February through March of 2026. And today we're going to talk all about what this means as Venus is moving into Pisces, obviously the placement of its exaltation. I'm going to also talk about what it means for the 12 rising signs, so stay tuned to the end. I'll take you through the 12 rising signs and talk about where Venus is blessing you in your chart. Now, obviously we know Venus is a benefic, right? So she is a great planet. She deals with love, relationships, beauty, art, aesthetics, and she is slipping into the waters of Pisces as you guys are watching this over the next day or so. And basically from February 10th, 2026, all the way until March the 6th, 2026, Venus is going to be in this sign. Now, this is a period where obviously boundaries can dissolve a little bit. Maybe we're being invited to kind of connect on a deeper soul level, practice healing, forgiveness, and kind of connecting in unity on a soul level worldwide. Now, Pisces is all about compassion. It's also about intuition, and it has this connection to unconditional love. So as Venus moves through Pisces, it's going to amplify our empathy. It's going to amplify our sensitivity and our receptivity to other people's emotions as well. She's really known to, I think, bring a lot of light to artistic inspiration, particularly art, film, music when she moves through the sign. And she's very kind of idealistic when it comes to love here as well, as we know that Neptune is associated with Pisces in a modern day sense. Jupiter is the traditional ruler. But many of us are going to feel like this is a time where we're a little bit more sensitive. Maybe we're feeling more inspired. We want to create art. We want to fall in love. We were feeling more maybe imaginative and kind of drawn to spiritual or mystical experiences in our relationships or when it comes to our finances. Now, this transit will be affecting everyone because we're going to see Venus meeting with the North Node, which is like a fated destiny call when it comes to love and compassion. But it's going to impact specific signs more than others. So if you happen to have Venus as your chart ruler, if you are a Taurus or Libra rising, you're going to be feeling the changes with this ingress, as well as my Pisces placements, my Pisces risings, suns, and moons. You guys will feel this a lot more intensely as Venus is kind of speaking to you more personally. And like I said, I'll take you guys through the 12 rising signs and we'll talk about what that means. Now, when Venus is in Pisces, love becomes a little bit more poetic. It also becomes a little bit more boundless. So we can see the positive side of Pisces, mutable water. So it is about kind of feeling inspired, feeling connected. It can also be very, very, very compassionate and intuitive and therapeutic to some extent as well. This is a water sign, so it's going to be very intuitive. It's going to be about picking up on some of the kind of subtle kind of cues that are going on in financial situations, romantic relationships, and also inspiration. But the darker side of Pisces can be things that are unveiled, things that are coming to a conclusion, stuff that might have been hidden or kind of in our subconscious, things that are more of a karmic nature and kind of connected to past happenings as well as past lives or potentially even soulmates. Now here with Venus in Pisces, we crave connection that really transcends the physical. This is, like I said, soulmates, twin flames, deep emotional bonds, and things that might span through many lifetimes. Creativity can flourish during this time, and that's what I like about this transit, especially anything that deals with art or music or poetry, visual media, photography. But on the shadow side, we might see that there can be a tendency to kind of idealize people, right? Or get catfished, obviously with that Neptune kind of connection. Maybe it means that there are situations that are falsified, or we're kind of having these grand reveals of realizing that the relationships, the people, the things that we value the most may actually not be what we thought they were. Now, what this leads to, and I think we'll see this with Mercury going retrograde in this sign as well, is that disillusionment is going to be coming up. And we're going to be kind of being led to this moment of kind of going, okay, if reality of our relationships and our finances aren't really kind of meeting this fantasy world that we have built up, some things inevitably have to come to an end. Now, boundaries can blur when Venus is in this sign, so we have to kind of watch for that. We have to watch for not seeing things so clearly or putting people on pedestals. This is where the term, the rose-colored glasses, kind of come from. We can also see that there can be codependency or escapism through romance or potentially financial matters as well. Now, in mundane astrology, Venus is connected to diplomacy, and especially in Pisces, I think about global diplomacy, global relationships, global finances. This is going to be a big theme for the next month or so as Venus moves through Pisces. But it's also about art, social harmony, finances, luxury goods. And in Pisces, it could manifest as global themes of compassion or international relationship changes, which can be positive. But we can also see, changes in regards to charitable kind of organizations, artistic movements that's focused on healing as well as unity. Pisces is notorious for helping those who are underprivileged, who are homeless. It's also going to be, I think, connected to organized religion and anything that deals with the religion of love and compassion and uniting, regardless of what our religious or kind of spiritual beliefs may be. There's a tendency to kind of blend when we're dealing with Pisces as well. Now, we might see more emphasis on environmental or humanitarian kind of causes that are tied to beauty and value, the oceans, potentially even water, and the health of water, as Venus can be connected to this in this sign. While Venus is in Pisces, I think the vibes are going to be very kind of soft, almost like I call this like the Mariah Carey lens, putting the Vaseline over the lens and everything looks kind of soft and it's got that filter. It can also mean that we are feeling a little bit more romantic. Maybe we're feeling like there are some otherworldly kind of forces that are intervening in our lives right now. So we're going to kind of feel like we're kind of floating in this sea under a starry sky. And I expect that there's going to be a lot of heightened intuition. We're going to see, especially in relationships, there's intuition there that's kind of calling us to reveal things, work through things, heal things, forgive things, or like explore the things that we have not been willing to kind of talk about, or the things that might have been a little bit more hidden. This can be good because it's giving us this opportunity to move towards forgiveness and a desire for a true spiritual kind of union. It's very dreamy and compassionate, but it can have those escapist vibes. So try to use this for listening to music, soaking in water, meditation, painting, anything where you're kind of getting into the vibe of Venus, where you're kind of blissed out would be really good. Creative projects and I think heartfelt conversations are also going to be likely during this transit as well. Now, Venus is going to perform well in certain signs, right? We know the traditional association with Taurus, groundedness, steady force, building, security values. Libra, which is about relationships, partnerships, marriage, diplomacy. But when Venus is in Pisces, she's actually exalted here. So this means that she can actually do some of her best work. This allows her to kind of express her highest qualities. Like I said, unconditional love, empathy, and beauty in the most kind of transcendent forms. So Pisces really kind of softens Venus's more material desires, where it's more about pleasure, or it's more maybe about what I'm getting out of the situation, or maybe relationships in a sense. It's a little bit more elevating that to more spiritual kind of fulfillment. Traditionally ruled by Jupiter, obviously, and the modern day ruler is Neptune. Pisces adds this abundance and illusion. So when we see Venus go through here, she feels at home in a realm where we love and we have no limits. Now, what's interesting is that Jupiter is the dispositor of Venus now. So we're going to see, now that Venus is moving into a kind of Jupiterian sign, she is going to be heavily influenced by Jupiter in Cancer. We'll see trines to Jupiter in Cancer, both from Mercury as well as Venus in Pisces. So there's actually a couple of really great windows of opportunity for healing, releasing, letting go, especially when it comes to karmic relationship or financial matters. And Jupiter is retrograde. So that's something to kind of think about. I believe that with Jupiter being the dispositor, we're going to see that it's going to be interesting because Jupiter is actually going to be retrograde until the 11th of March. Well, Venus is only going to be in Pisces until the 10th. So right around the time that we're finishing the Mercury retrograde in Pisces, right around the time that Venus is leaving Pisces, then we're going to see Jupiter go direct. And I think it's going to promote actually a lot of emotional healing. But I think that with Jupiter retrograde, it's actually kind of indicating that there is this inner reflection on abundance, on belief. in the sign of Cancer, ruled by the moon. So that's about our emotions, our roots, our home, the past. And Mercury going retrograde in Pisces as well is going to illuminate a lot of some of these same themes. And we'll see trines where I think subconsciously, in our dreams, intuitively, and collectively, we can actually emotionally heal. Now, this dispositorship brings a lot of luck. I think that's the positive thing. We've got two planets that are going to be in exaltation, Jupiter and Cancer, obviously Venus and Pisces, in a trine to each other, creating that more Jupiterian flow. Yes, there can be lots of waves of emotion. Yes, there can be lots of tears. There can be lots of intuition that's kind of kicking things up. But it's all trying to create this steady flow so we can actually push through some of this stuff, forgive, heal, and not create the same karma over and over and over again. That dispositorship brings luck through emotional connections, right? It can also mean that this is happening in our home life, it's happening with our family, there can be more intuitive expansion, but the retrograde motion might actually delay some of the outward kind of manifestations. So it's really urging us, I think, to heal past wounds, get closure, cry it out, right? Heal ourselves, soak, have a cup of tea, meditate on it, get some more rest before we're actually really ready to move forward. Now, Venus is there in turn, the dispositor of Uranus and Taurus. So that means that now we've got Venus that's moving through Pisces, but it's influencing Uranus, which is in a Venusian sign. And one thing you guys will see is Venus will come into a sextile with Uranus and Taurus right towards the tail end of her transit. So when we think about this, because Venus rules Taurus and Uranus is kind of transiting there until about April, end of April of this year, as the dispositor, it's also softening some of the more disruptive kind of energies that are going on with Uranus and Taurus things. So it's going to be infusing innovation in values, finances, and security with compassion as well as creativity. I expect with this connection that we're going to see breakthroughs in art, tech and art, film, things that are connected to self-expression, stabilizing ourselves, eco-friendly things might be popping up, unconventional relationships that are really kind of emphasizing empathy. But it can also indicate that there are some things going on behind closed doors, both through the Venus transit, but also through the Mercury retrograde, that we are starting to see kind of global echoes of a slowdown or a dissolving or a changing of kind of economic relationships or financial relationships, I guess I should say, internationally with other countries. And that this may start to kind of foreshadow some of the impending kind of destabilization that's going on with the banks, the bond market, the food chain, anything that deals with, moving goods or food, being able to have things for kind of sustenance or security or stability. And that it's not going to be in one particular place. We're going to see it across the globe. Now, I think about last year, right? So this is the first time that Venus has come back into the sign of Pisces since the spring of 2025, where we saw that gnarly Venus retrograde that started in Aries. I think it was right around like 9-10 degrees, and it retrograded back into Pisces. So it was nice to have it in Pisces, but it was also kind of hanging out in Pisces while Saturn and Neptune was there, right before Saturn and Neptune actually kind of made their entryway into Aries. And it was, in my opinion, that period of, okay, all these like illusions were now starting to be kind of revealed about international relationships, international trade. We saw a lot of trade wars, obviously, as Venus went into Aries and Saturn went into Aries and Neptune went into Aries, kind of creating this me first mentality, right? This, what about me? What am I doing? What am I going to do? What am I angry about? And then it retrograded back into Pisces. So it was kind of saying, hey, some things needed to be kind of revealed, or there was some sense of actually sacrifice that was going on in Pisces where we actually weren't seeing things so clearly, or we were too empathic, too giving, right? Too understanding. And Saturn and Neptune in Pisces was really kind of talking about this global wave of emotions that were coming, because a lot of people weren't really seeing, they were feeling, but they weren't seeing some of these limitations. Unfortunately, I think a lot of that was just illusions that were kind of getting ready to be revealed. And when I think about that retrograde, so it took place from March 1st to about April 12th, 2025, as it went from Aries to back into Pisces. That period was really about reevaluating our desires. It was about relationships. It was about self-worth under more of like a spiritual lens. So now Venus is direct. She won't be going retrograde until the fall of this year. And she is allowing us, I think, to integrate some of those lessons that we had in 2025. We also saw in 2024 and 2025 eclipses that were taking place in Pisces. And so Venus is now going to be going back over some of those degrees. More recently, in September of 2025, we saw a Pisces eclipse. It was around 15 degrees. And we're going to see Venus reactivate that particular eclipse. We're also going to see Venus go through the same eclipse degree, 25 degrees as the one that we had even longer ago. I think it was like at the end of 2024, if I remember correctly. So, you know, it's going to be integrating some of these lessons, perhaps with the Mercury retrograde in Pisces that's coming up at the end of February. It's really revisiting some of these unfinished romantic problems, these blockages, this sense of disconnection, disharmony, self-sacrifice in a way for relationships, or really where we're having to really give a lot up just to feel like we have to survive. Now, hopefully we can do this time around with a more kind of creative sense of self. Maybe there is newfound clarity and more compassion and healing. That's really what I'm kind of hoping for. But I want to show you guys some of the most important aspects Venus is going to be making throughout this cycle. The good news is that there aren't going to be any squares. Okay, so I just want to kind of lead with that. There's no conjunctions that we're going to be seeing to outer planets. We have the conjunction to the North Node, but I don't consider that a planet. It will be important, but you're not seeing squares to Pluto. You're not seeing conjunctions to Saturn. You're not seeing conjunctions to Neptune. That will come when Venus goes into Aries, and it's going to be a whole new ball game as we're getting into March. And you guys will start to see some of the physical, the financial, the relational kind of changes that are going to be coming from that, where love is actually going to get real quite quickly. So I encourage you guys to really enjoy this period while we have it, because it's going to be softening some of the other kind of harsh realities that are kind of coming up for us here in February. So positive is it's not making any negative aspects to any outer planets. Trines to Jupiter, great, free-flowing, very intuitive. Sextiles to Uranus and Taurus, giving us the opportunity to make changes, to release things, to really stabilize our bodies, our food, our ecosystems, also our financial kind of awareness, and be willing to actually give certain things up and not be afraid of the financial consequences. I think that's really what a lot of this is. Now, off the bat, I know many of you guys are watching this a day ahead, but you're going to see on February the 10th, Venus is going to enter into Pisces. So immediately there is this shift in relational dynamics. As the transit begins, it's setting the stage for compassionate tones when it comes to love and also values. I think it'll heighten sensitivity. It's ideal for starting creative kind of artistic projects, deepening bonds, and just really being aware of some of the changes that are kind of coming up in relationships as well as our values. Now, she will come into conjunction with the North Node, and as you guys are watching this is going to be setting up actually over the next couple of days. If you guys didn't catch my Mercury and Pisces video, definitely check it out. But Mercury is going to be hitting that conjunction with the North Node on the 12th at 9 degrees of Pisces, and then we're going to see Venus come through, and on the 17th of February, she will be conjunct the North Node in Pisces at an 8. 8 degrees, I mean, Scorpio degree, it's about a change, transformation. It's about a death and rebirth. It's about an unveiling, a digging up of the truth, things that can be scandalous and obviously kind of difficult or horrific to kind of see, but necessary. Now, when Venus conjuncts the North Node, it's interesting because obviously the North Node is more Dharma, right? So it's more collectively where we are all going. I consider this a very fortuitous conjunction. It means that the way forward is the religion of love, compassion, forgiveness, healing, right? All of these things. But in order to do that, we have to actually get out all of the gunk, right? We have to expose the corruption. We have to expose the crime. We have to actually look at some of the ugly side of things that can kind of happen in relationships. And so much of the North Node is not visible. It's what is still yet to kind of be explained. Later this year, we'll see the North Node leave Pisces and go into Aquarius. By the time we get to this summer, we're going to start to make sense of all the hidden things that have been going on a global level, on an etheric level, on a spiritual level, on a subconscious level, where we were either deceived or we were willing to give up too much. Now, when Venus conjuncts with the North Node in Pisces on the 17th of February, this is where Venus is aligning with destiny's path collectively, right? So of course, if you happen to be a Taurus, Libra, Pisces rising, you're going to feel this very strongly. But I think that for those of you guys who aren't ruled by Venus, it's still important to really watch, because this is where the universe is intervening. It's basically saying, hey, hello, there's something that's coming from the future that wants to give you an opportunity to rejoice, to heal, to have more love, to maybe feel more secure, to feel validated in a way or recognized, and not feel like you have to just give, give, give. So this is a very fated transit when it comes to relationships. I see clients when they're going through this transit that when, Venus is making an aspect in their progress chart to a north node, or the north node's conjunct their natal Venus, or perhaps transit Venus is on their north node, oftentimes aligns with really significant turning points when it comes to their relationships and also their values, their finances, their sense of style, how they express themselves. So this is really about meeting soul connections. Pisces, the soul, right? This is not the vessel. The vessel is more Aries. Pisces is that thing that does not have a structure, does not have a form. It's like a vapor, it's a mist. So this is about meeting soul connections or aligning our values with our life purpose. Ruled by Jupiter, coming into a trine with Jupiter, needing to get into an emotional alignment with what that means, right? So I think that, the effect basically is that we're going to see a lot of karmic encounters when it comes to love and finances. This requires us to change because it's at an 8. It might be something that's scary, that we're afraid to kind of change. But there will be opportunities for growth through compassion, emotional reevaluation, and also really looking at the past so we can really change the future. Now, you will see Venus leave that conjunction to the North Node, and on the 28th of February, she's going to be moving towards a trine, which is going to be with Jupiter in Cancer. And you're going to see several trines to Jupiter. Mercury will trine it several times throughout its retrograde. Actually, let me go back. Sorry, guys. Looks like the Venus trine is going to be around the 22nd. But we'll see Mercury trine Jupiter several times. Good communication, good news, key intellect, dreams, prominent conversations, talking about our feelings. And then Venus will only make that trine one time. So that'll be on February 22nd. Something that I noticed about this is the same degree as last September's eclipse that we had in Pisces. So you might want to go back, think about what was kind of happening around September 7th in your life. What was taking place then, what changed then, because Venus is going to reactivate this particular eclipse in the Pisces area of your chart. Now, Venus trining, Jupiter, its dispositor, is, I think, wonderful. Jupiter wants to make things bigger. It wants to bring abundance, joy, creativity, knowledge. It wants to bring wealth. It wants to bring riches. But I don't necessarily think it's a wealth in a sense of physical, tangible things. A wealth of emotion, right? Kind of this kind of baptismal energy of being cleansed, being kind of born again is kind of the vibe that you get with Pisces and Jupiter. And so it can be emotional clearings, conversations that can kind of help heal the heart, particularly if we're addressing issues with the past or issues connected to family, karma, things like that. And when it trines, this is very expansive and lucky, especially since 15 degrees is echoing that eclipse that we had from last September. So it's reopening themes of release. It was a full moon lunar eclipse, and also intuition from then. With Jupiter retrograde, still obviously it's that internal kind of abundance, that internal reflection, that internal healing. So I do think it's going to promote a lot of emotional healing. It's really about generosity when it comes to love, family blessings, good changes when it comes to home property and real estate, and great for nurturing relationships or creative expansion. Now on the 28th, then we're going to see that Venus is going to come into conjunction with Mercury, which is retrograde. Now I do touch on this in my Mercury and Pisces video, but I really want to reiterate here. Venus is the heart, okay? She's like a flower. She opens up to something. Mercury is the mind. And we know that obviously Mercury is moving through a sign where it is a little discombobulated. It's poetic, it's charming, it's intuitive, but sometimes it finds it difficult to find the words because emotions are so strong, right? Or there is some confusion, especially with Mercury going retrograde. So when this conjunction happens, we've got the mind, which is functioning in a sign that it doesn't do well in, and Venus, which is very comfortable and very much at home, coming together. So there can be this sense of like the heart and the mind need to get on the same page. 22 degrees. So it's going to deal with long-standing issues with authority figures. It's a Capricorn degree. Things that connect to government, things that come to government budgets, potentially really prominent women in the news, really prominent Capricorns, women who have potentially been in prison, or women who have been kind of behind the scenes. It could also mean that there's about to be a massive kind of switch up or change when it comes to the rhetoric, or when it comes to the tone, or what the media is saying about what's going to be happening with global trade, with global relationships. Things can be distorted, things can be confusing, so you have to be really careful with this particular conjunction. Now, yes, for some of you guys, this is the day that your ex calls you, right? Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus. the drunk phone call that you guys get, or the sloppy text, or the dream that you have about somebody who you were involved in or involved with can definitely happen with this conjunction. Now I want to read to you guys the degree or the Sabian symbol for this particular conjunction, and because it's at 22 degrees and change, we're going to be reading 23 degrees of Pisces. I find it very fascinating. Pisces 23, spiritus phenomenon. The keyword is sensitivity. The theme is strange things are happening. The symbol speaks to the materialization of a higher reality and the ability of a man to tap into potential that he can make manifest according to his particular will and desire. The image of spiritualist phenomena emphasizes the power of the mind and the importance of focus and mental discipline. The challenge is on the degree of learning how to break through the conditioning effects of experience and develop a greater sensitivity to the possibilities of what can be achieved. The key here is not allowing the self to become distracted by the allure of every passing whim and fancy or the trivial problems of everyday living. On a practical level, this image alludes to psychic phenomena and oftentimes entertaining activities of the invisible world. It also suggests cosmic comedies and practical jokes and gremlins, or the mysterious causes of things that inexplicably go wrong, break, disappear, or change in some way. At its highest, the symbol represents psychic sensitivity, a highly refined attunement or higher potential of all things, and powerful depths of focus that lead to significant achievements. Watch for confusion, nervousness, and instability or a tendency to easily distract. The accent is on strange events that might disrupt business as usual. Things can go wrong and turn out unexpectedly today. Your greatest advantage lies in understanding the greatest significance being revealed when things don't go as planned or when patterns and habits suddenly break. Be sensitive to the opportunities created by change and confusion. Guard against creating your own chaos by refusing to discipline yourself or establish order in your life. Avoid trying to be everywhere at once in a frantic attempt to not miss everything that's going on. Learn to sit still and listen. Stepping stones is telekinesis, psychic phenomena, and confusion, practical jokes, gremlins. I love that. Things that are peculiar, quirks, unexplained happenings. I have a hunch, because Mercury is very much confused and really focused on past patterns and past emotions and what has happened in the past, that this is going to be a whole media blitz to try to get everybody up in their feelings and their emotions and get them very distracted, while there are bigger economic changes that are going on behind the scenes. Huge. And I have said with the Mercury retrograde video, this is the canary in the coal mine. This is the economists that are trying to get out, the independent media that's trying to break a story. It's the people who are like, stop talking about Super Bowl, stop talking about what's going on with this or what's going on with celebrities. And to some extent, it's even a lot of these things that there are still missing documents, right? Mercury retrograde, things that have been redacted or things that have been hidden. That is potentially going to be distracting from some very, very, very big things that I think the governments are going to be doing, to be moving money around, trying to, inject more liquidity into the system, trying to keep banks from failing. As I'm filming this, actually, a couple days before you guys see this, we're hearing about bank runs that are going on in the UK. People not being able to have access to their banks. I don't know if you're in the UK and you're watching, let me know, but I'm seeing this all over independent media, where there's a bunch of issues with, ATMs and stuff going down and people not being able to get access to their stuff. Part of that's because we're coming into the Mercury retrograde shadow. So we're starting to see where there's going to be malfunctionings going on with machines. Obviously, it's in a sign where Venus is exalted. So you're going to see it happening in other countries, right? Globally, Pisces. And then you're going to start to see it happen in other places near you, is kind of what I think is going to happen. Now, it's also about a change going on, a redirecting with the markets, right? Forget the fact that Saturn and Neptune are conjunct, right? That's not already kind of suggesting that there is a dawn of some massive change going on, I think, with leadership and governments and stability. But this is telling me that a lot of people are still asleep. They don't see what's happening. So when Venus comes into conjunction with Mercury retrograde, both being influenced by what's happening with Jupiter, I suspect that a lot of this is going to be about changes that are going on with laws, Jupiter's laws, regarding immigration, regarding also what people can be working, creating, sharing. I mean, we're probably going to see some creators come back into the space where they had been censored, I would assume. We may also hear that there's some really prominent stories about missing women. I know that that's in the news right now. Mercury can be about a journalist, right? And then Venus can be about a woman. The dispositor of that is Jupiter, so it's connecting to mother figures. So I think it's very much connected to this recent story where you're hearing all over the news. Everybody's talking about this, news journalist whose mom's missing, but they don't follow the rabbit trail or the trail of breadcrumbs as to some of the connections and things that deal with stories that she has been either, trying to push certain narratives that she's been trying to push. People are alleging that, she was kidnapped, that she went missing. And I'm not doubting that because I don't know what's happening. Missing people is Pisces, by the way. But there's a bigger piece to the story here. And I'm wondering if it has to do with people who are wanting to, push certain narratives or get her to be quiet or not be saying things or holding her, accountable for things that she has said in the past. So to me, astrologically, even though it's wrong, it makes sense. And so I think you'll see more about this, but there can also be this unveiling of where there's been other organizations, maybe at the top, 22 degrees Capricorn, that are associated with this. And whether or not somebody is found in a well or near a body of water or in a tunnel or in something that is underground, I think is a lot of the Mercury retrograde stuff, or people that may be found dead, right? I hope not, but that's usually what happens when we see 8 degrees that gets triggered. I think with Venus meeting this Mercury retrograde, we have to be very careful about reminiscing and getting stuck in the past. Things that we keep telling ourselves, rereading text messages, reciting things that, that we shouldn't be saying, or sharing things we shouldn't be sharing, or maybe we're kind of reminiscing to the point where we can't actually move forward. We're so emotionally tied to, oh no, I don't want this to end. I don't want this to go away. I don't want to have that conversation. But the aspects to Jupiter are saying, especially with the moon that day, look at the moon, it's trining. It's time to release it. Okay, so whether it's an emotional release, a document release, releasing of relationships, releasing of karmic ties, I think it's a little tricky. And this is, like I said, blending the heart and the mind. And so Mercury retrograde is really prompting, hey, because Mercury is the dispositor of the South Node, what is not healthy, what doesn't work, what isn't serving us, because so much of Virgo is about kind of servitude, and where we've been sacrificing parts of our hearts, or we've been sacrificing our lives for things that we don't have to continue to keep doing. The irony, so much about sacrifice actually deals with Pisces. That's why you're seeing so much of this stuff in the news right now. That's why people are so emotional right now, and it's kind of weird. I'm having a very, very difficult time with it because I feel like I live in this alternate reality where like a lot of people are just desensitized. It's not bothering them. It's not upsetting them because it's not their kids. It's not their family, right? That's going missing or being abused or being trafficked. And, some of you guys don't want to hear that. I'm sorry. I know a lot of you guys are in a very sensitive space right now, like I am too. But I also look at this and I'm like, that's why a lot of this stuff has continued, because people have kept quiet. Because people have been manipulated, abused, they've been scared, they've gone missing, because they've been paid off, because they've been told that nobody will listen to them, nobody will believe them, nobody will care. And so much I think of that Mercury-Venus conjunction is going to probably be about some exposure of some very prominent women, particularly in government. So leadership positions, people who have been, vice presidents, prime ministers, people who have been heads of hospitals, heads of nonprofits, things that are supposed to be uniting, right? That are actually dismantling through that conjunction with Mercury, which is connected to the South Node. That's not actually helping people financially, emotionally, spiritually. I think about exposure coming out in regards to pharmaceuticals, things that are connected to healthcare, things that are connected to women's health, reproductive health, and where women are now starting to kind of speak up and it's coming back up. I think that this is really reviewing, in many ways, some of the themes of emotional release and like illusions and some of the spiritual awakening that has been taking place since we had the Pisces eclipse last September. Now, does it mean that, we have to believe everything we hear? No, probably not, because Mercury's retrograde. So whatever information is being put out, or whatever next batch of documents, or whatever next kind of media agenda is being put out, is likely going to be a pivot away from what we have heard. And Pisces is where everything goes to end. When it goes into Aries, things begin again. So there is this delaying of the inevitable, right? Things getting ready to be kind of exposed. So they can delay it. I say they, the powers that be, or things in our lives that are like, oh no, that'll never get out, or, we're never going to tell anybody, or the secret is safe. stuff is going to start coming up, and it's stuff that's is karmic because it's 22 degrees, and it's things that have been hidden for a very long time. What it's connected to is families, right? So in a personal sense, our own personal karmic karma we have with families. Cancer can represent the mother, right? And then ancestors is Pisces. So a lot of it can mean that we've inherited a lot of generational trauma. We have been, I think, born into a world where we've been told a lot of things about the world, religion, leadership, all this Pisces stuff is true, and that we're victimized and there's nothing we can do, or that there's secret societies kind of running the world. And I also think on a major scale, it's going to be about where some of this ancestral trauma that's been passed down from generation to generation to generation, and whether that's through genocide, broken families, addiction, abuse, right, isolation, is now starting to come home to roost. And like the ancestors are really speaking with the North Node in Pisces, with the retrogrades in Pisces. It's like they're, the spiritual side is going to start saying, we're going to start coming in dreams, we're going to start unveiling things, we're going to start kind of in the ethers trying to affect things to kind of get people to wake up and heal some of this. A really long time ago, I read an article that was talking about earthworms, and it's sad, but scientists were taking earthworms and they were traumatizing them, right? They were inflicting pain, or they were traumatizing them, and then they were letting them reproduce, and then they would take the worms that they then reproduced from, that were the offspring, and they would do some of the same things to see if they would react. And they were able to go 6, 7, 8, 9 generations of earthworms down, and they would do certain things without actually inflicting pain that they would react to. And that shows you just, even in a scientific way, that trauma, ancestral trauma, can be inherited. This can be from people who have had to flee countries due to war, due to genocide. This can also be talking about where, on a soul level, spiritually, we've experienced so much that we have a tendency to react to things in a very kind of traumatized way. But we can't find the words with Mercury and Pisces, right? And Venus being there is also saying, well, this is love, like love is abuse, or please help me, or give me a little bit of something, I'll do whatever you want. So some of us might feel like we're at the bargaining phase, we're at the begging phase, we're at the what can I do phase. And I think this is where we start to kind of see things really start to fall apart. And all things have to be revealed. I think that's really the silver lining of all of this. Now things get interesting because I think that with this emotional release, really what it's saying, because it's at that degree that it's coming into now at the beginning of March, so it's going to hit another eclipse degree. And before I move on, Mercury Venus is in deep intuitive conversations, guys. Okay, so revisiting past loves, ideas, potential for misunderstandings, things being falsely represented, things that can be fraudulent. So we have to clarify a lot of stuff, especially with one-on-one relationship conversations. We also have to do that a lot when it comes to financial transactions and what is actually real, because Pisces is distorted. So there can be some things that are distorted that are put out there that's like, this is the next big investment, this is the next big financial move, this is what's going to happen. And I think that it's going to flip-flop a little bit because of the retrograde. So on March the 2nd, we see Venus come into conjunction with the same degree where we had the September 17th, 2024 eclipse, which I believe was at 25 degrees of Pisces. So we'll see that on March the 2nd. And that is interesting because Venus is activating that point. So 25 degrees is acting, right? It's an Aries degree. So we're instinctively acting. I think this is where some people are going to be like the preppers are going to come out and they're going to be like, we're getting water, we're getting food, we're getting right with God, we're praying, we're doing this, we're doing that. It's very biblical when you're looking at stuff in Pisces. And I feel like this is also a time where people are going to be naturally tapping into that sextile with Uranus that's coming up. So being that Uranus in Taurus represents people who are unconventional, like people who are off-gridding, people who are making their own power, growing their own food, people that are getting out of centralized banking, right? Moving away from big banks, trying to diversify their assets, maybe looking into crypto. That's where some of these people are going to be like, yeah, we see what direction the world is going in. We're getting our ducks in a row because we feel the rumblings of some of the change coming. Pisces also deals explicitly with not only global exchanges, but it deals with oil, it deals with gasoline, it deals with pharmaceuticals. And this influence with Jupiter is kind of highlighting that there's about to be some big changes, possibly with some of these industries.
Jupiter's also been responsible for a lot of the silver runs that we've seen. We saw silver, I mean, and notoriously silver is kind of really dead, and then it goes through periods where it spikes and then it kind of drops back down. But we may see that there's a lot of reorganization of what's going on with institutional investment, things that are happening with silver or with oil or with gas. I suspect, I don't know. And then it hits 25 degrees, which means now individuals are going to suddenly instinctually go, I feel like I need to have a little bit of something solid, right, Taurus? I feel like I should have some extra food. I feel like I should maybe get a case of water, or I feel like I should have some medication on hand. And I don't say this to be an alarmist, I'm just reading the astrology, but that's how I've seen it in recent years when Saturn and Neptune were sextiling Uranus. That's how I've seen it also as the eclipses kind of came in and aspected Uranus. It's the people who felt divinely connected that they need to be getting their affairs in order. And that looks differently for everybody depending on your chart. But Pisces is that spiritual kind of like, oh, it's coming to the end of this cycle now. All right, you know, probably should get my affairs in order. And Uranus really is about destabilizing the nervous system when it's in Taurus. We don't feel secure because we're constantly getting bombarded. Emotionally, it's like all these things that have been happening slowly and then at one time. And it makes a lot of people kind of feel like they're not secure. The positive here is that I think with Venus being at a degree that's associated with Aries, which is instinctually, intuitively taking action about what they need to have in their home, right? Jupiter. Do they have necessary supplies, medication? Do you have a bug out bag? Do you have an understanding with your family that if things get kind of weird, or with your neighbors that you're going to meet at a certain home or you're going to go to a certain place, right? Things that I know sound really, really crazy, but make sense to me because I've seen this happen the last couple of times that we've had aspects that have gone through Pisces. Now, as it hits that degree, from September 17, 2024, that was a partial lunar eclipse. This is reviewing the themes of emotional release and illusions. It's also about spiritual awakenings from that time. It is echoing closure or new beginnings in relationships that are tied to past eclipses and also heightened intuition. I remember those eclipses. If I remember correctly, this is when the eclipses were squaring Jupiter in the sign of Gemini. So I believe that was the case. Which was a lot of distortion, confusion, gaslighting with the media, right? Gemini is the media. That's why over the last several years, having had Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, all of the mutable signs and what they represent, not just the signs as people, but what they represent has all been distorted and drugged through the mud. Gemini, media, television, radio, journalists that have lied to us about everything. Virgo, the healthcare system, food, anything that deals with animals, anything that deals with cleanliness or medical attention. Sagittarius, higher education, priests, global relations, our philosophy, trade, anything that deals with college professors, law professors, and Pisces, anything that deals with hidden places. That also means connections to hospitals, private institutions, nonprofit, people who are here to help, anything that's connected to immigration or anything that deals with organized religion. All of these things have been distorted. All of these things have been manipulated. All of these things now are a house of cards that are collapsing now that Saturn and Neptune are leaving Pisces. Now that they go into Aries, they can begin again and we can start to see whether or not we're actually going to rework a lot of these things. But that eclipse was when we started seeing all the conspiracies, all the is this real, all the what was going on with COVID, all the things that were going on also with getting ready to, you know, come into what would be 2025, which was going to be also a new era because we were going to see there was going to be a new president. Now, whether or not you're for him against him, I don't care. It's choosing a side is the lesser of two evils at this point. It's not so much about what's right and wrong. It's about collectively what the powers that be hid from the people. Point blank, that's what it's about. What was concealed? What did the media not tell us? What did they not disclose? What did the big newspapers lie about? What did the journalists lie about? How did this affect education? How did this distort our reality and the ability to determine what's real and what's fake? And that's what we have been dealing with. And now it's this kind of like big moment where we're going to start to see if the emperor has no clothes. So it'll reactivate that. 2 days later, you're going to see Venus come into a sextile with Uranus, and that's the last aspect that Venus is going to make. So when Venus starts coming into that sextile now with Uranus, at a Gemini degree, 27, It's definitely about media. And now it's going to be where we're going to start to see the media kind of turn, and things that they have told you didn't happen, didn't exist, didn't take place, wasn't real. We're going to now start to see the physical and the financial results of some of these things. Now, Venus is the dispositor, obviously, like I said, of Taurus. We've also see the Jupiter kind of aspects that have been playing out. And I think at least for me, I can only speak for myself, it's been this internal knowing that's like me checking in going like, is that right? Does that feel right with me? Is it resonating? And like the emotional kind of stuff that can come up that's just like, this is something I've always suspected, but like now the reality is it's actually happening. So the positive is that at least Venus is making a nice aspect to Uranus. This is happening in the midst of eclipses, by the way, too. So a lot of the transits that you're seeing with Venus is happening right before we come into a solar eclipse in Aquarius, which is going to square Uranus, and it does show some destabilizing things for the collective. Obviously, if you haven't seen that video, check it out. And then we see this other Virgo eclipse that's going to be coming in around the 3rd, which won't, by sign it will oppose Venus, but it's actually in opposition to Mercury, which is retrograde. So it's still saying a lot of things are being revealed. I think about Maxwell being, I believe she's a Capricorn or Capricorn rising. And I wonder if this has to do with her. I wonder if this has to do with, if she is going to testify. From what I understand, she's pleading the 5th. I wonder if it's going to be about a disappearance regarding her, connected to her, or other prominent women disappearing or being exposed, right? So that could be the other way of looking at it. Venus in a sextile to Uranus is at least harmonious because it means that this aspect is bringing innovative sparks and it's helping stabilize Uranus and Taurus. So exciting changes in finances, in values, unexpected opportunities in love that feel fated, and they also feel freeing. Yes, some of the conversations, some of the news, some of the things, some of the harsh financial realities or relationship realities we don't really want to deal with, but it is important to do that. It is almost feeling like it's the last kind of a hurrah as Venus is leaving Pisces. The sun will leave Pisces. Mercury will come out of Pisces. And as we're getting into, mid-April, we've got a whole slew of planets that are moving through Aries. We're then going to start to be able to break away from some of these things where we realize just how much we've been taking on a soul level, how much we've been sacrificing, how much has been hidden. And also, I'm wondering if it's about, hidden money, right? If it's about how much money has been potentially laundered and how it's been like a global thing that's been going on. I mean, I could go on and on, but man, I think it's actually, this is a really big transit. I think it's going to be really, really, really significant. And more importantly, emotionally what this means for us, because it may not be things that are impacting you personally on a day-to-day, but the vibration of some of the things that have happened over the years impacts all of us collectively. So then we see Venus go into Aries, which will be the next video that I will do, and I will be probably obviously covering that in like the March horoscopes. But Venus will leave Pisces, go into Aries, and it looks like that's actually happening on the 6th. So I stand corrected. I thought it was the 10th. So it's going to be March 6th that Venus is going to change signs. When that happens, she will be sitting at 0 degrees, the world axis point. Same degree where we see on February 20th, Saturn and Neptune come into conjunction. Now all of this Aries is being ruled by all of this Aries is being ruled by Mars, and Mars is moving through Pisces. So it's still illusion related. It's still hidden. We're almost waiting for all of the normies or the people that are asleep to kind of catch up. And we're going to see one portion, I think, of the world that's going to be like, this is the reality we're living in. This is what we need to do. We need to do it right now. And then we're going to see other people with Mercury retrograde, being in Pisces and Mars going through Pisces and the North Node being there, being like, still asleep at the wheel, still afraid to say something, still afraid to kind of do something and speak out. But that will change. We will start to see that change as we're getting into April. I think that that's going to be really prominent because Venus shifting into Aries at that bold 0 degrees is echoing that Saturn-Neptune conjunction later this month. It's marking a new cycle that's really about structured dreams and idealistic action. So the effects are going to be, we're kind of going from this dreamy, idealistic, everything's going to be amazing, or, we can keep kind of being in this la-la land, to Aries, where relationships now are going to be about gaining initiative. We're carrying forward some of the Pisces lessons that we had. And maybe now as Venus is starting to come into conjunction with Neptune, we're going to see for sure where we've been disillusioned, for sure. And also that harsh reality check as Venus is coming into conjunction with Saturn. And we know that Saturn does not perform well in Aries, right? It's still young and learning how to kind of find its way. It's still also trying to break away from some of the personal illusions, I think, here in Aries with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And then Venus is also going to kind of talk about, because where we have potentially bought into some of these global beliefs or these kind of everybody needing to be together as one, and unity is not a bad thing. I want to really reiterate that. But where we have sacrificed ourselves to do this, where it is now going to start to have a real effect on all of our lives personally. So you may not care what's going on in other parts of the world, but you should, because it's a cascade effect of things that are going to start to happen to all of us spiritually, energetically, personally, physically, financially. And these things are hidden when they're in Pisces. I cannot tell you guys this enough. And you will see pretty much from mid-March until April that a lot of these things that have been hidden, now we're going to have to deal with. And now we're going to kind of go, how can I support that brand? How can I support that company? How can I bank with that bank? How can I, support that celebrity or glorify that person? Where did I not see it? And it's going to be a very difficult thing for a lot of people to deal with, especially as we're kind of getting into the summer. So you bookmark these videos. You guys can come back and you can kind of see some of the stuff that I was talking about. But the positive here is that if we're leaning into, during this transit, Venus making some of the conjunctions to the North Node, making some of the trines to Jupiter and Pisces, we can start to emotionally heal. We can recognize that these patterns have gone on for a very long time. Some of them not only are from this lifetime, but they span many, many lifetimes, many, many relationships, many family dynamics even. And these are things on a soul level that we are trying to heal, so we're not perpetually repeating the same cycle, right? So let me take you guys through the 12 rising signs. Let's talk a little bit about where Venus is going to be moving for you guys. Obviously, I'm a Western astrologer, so that's the kind of astrology that I like to practice. So I'm looking at this under the lens of Western whole sign. And so we're going to see from February 10th through March the 6th, 2026, Venus is going to be in Pisces. I want to give you guys a little bit of feedback as to where Venus is kind of moving through your chart. And I'm going to be doing this, like I said, from the Western whole sign. If you're a Placidus user, then I recommend looking at where 0 degrees of Pisces is in your chart. You may have to listen to more than one rising sign to get the bigger picture of what this means for you and what might be kind of materializing. I'm going to touch on a little bit of the North Node in Pisces conjunction. I'm going to touch on a little bit of the maybe the trine to Jupiter and Mercury retrograding into conjunction, with Venus and what that might mean for you guys. To make the most of my predictions, listen to your rising signs so you can see exactly where in your life this is taking place. Listen to your sun sign to see how it's impacting you with your overall vitality, career, your joy, and your moon sign, which I think I would listen to because you're going to see some trines to things in lunar signs. And it might also speak to more what's going on with you in a more kind of subconscious manner, okay? Choose your own adventure. All right, so let's start with my Aries and my Aries risings. All right, Aries, so you're going to see Venus going into Pisces. And you're going to see this massive planets that have been hanging out in Aquarius now kind of start shifting into Pisces, which obviously is your 12th house sign. So Aries, Venus is connected to your 7th house of committed relationships, one-on-one partnerships, marriage, spouses, connecting with others. And your 12th house, which deals with security, stability, anything that deals with money and values, right? Pleasure. So as Venus is going through your 12th house, this is the house of spirituality. This is the house of seclusion. This is the house of conclusions. It's also about secrets. So the theme, I think, for some of you guys is going to be about reflecting and reviewing on your values in relationships, what you need karmically, what you're releasing, what you're letting go of. There could be hidden romances, major emphasis on self-care. It can also be about healing, foreign travel, foreign relationships, foreign dealings. It can also mean that there is this renewal that's going on about what it is that you want when it comes to partnerships. It may mean that you might feel a little in the dark, but it can also mean some of you guys are having kind of hidden whirlwind romances kind of behind the scenes as well. Now with the conjunction to the North Node, it might mean that you're seeing some faded kind of turning points in relationships where either, people are coming in that are part of your future or people are coming in to help you. So like therapists, astrologers, healers, psychics, right? Even people who do like hypnosis or past life regression can be really helpful here, especially if you're working through blockages. It can also mean with the trine to Jupiter that it's giving you the opportunity to really heal some of your ancestral ties or your family relationships, and that there can be family or emotional or home growth. Now with Mercury going retrograde conjunct Venus, this is about rethinking some of your subconscious patterns and relationships and seeing where there could be some self-sabotaging or some bad habits or some things where, you know, you're not sleeping well and it affects your relationships with others, or perhaps where you're trying to kind of heal some of your relationship patterns. I recommend meditating, okay? Releasing grudges, sitting in baths, saunas, even doing a staycation at a hotel, getting a massage, working with aromatherapy. These things can be really helpful for you right now. And I think that this is really bringing up for a lot of you guys a spiritual awakening when it comes to love and relationships. There is the possibility of secret admirers that can kind of emerge, or that there can be really kind of significant kind of karmic contract related things happening in relationships and partnerships. And it's about whether or not you're willing to release some of the old kind of relationship karma and embrace the new. Good luck, Aries. Let me know what happens. Taurus and Taurus risings. Certainly you guys are a main player in this transit as your chart ruler's on the move. So you're going to be seeing that Venus is changing signs. She's going to be going into the sign of Pisces, which honestly is quite friendly for you. You know, water and earth get on very well. You'll see a sextile to planets in your chart if you're a Taurus sun, moon, or rising, as well as Uranus and Taurus. It's a nice reprieve, I think, from what has been probably and continues to be in February what feels like a very intense time because of just the nature of the eclipses and the squares that have been kind of happening in your chart. Now, wherever Venus goes is where you are. So Venus is kind of trading in her office space or her work responsibilities for parties, gatherings, socializing, friends, connection, and community. So that's where you want to be. You want to be where the people are, right? Little Mermaid. And I think that this is a time where, with Venus in your 11th house of groups and friends, there's a lot of social support. There's a lot of focusing on platonic, you know, kind of bonds, connecting with groups, good food, good wine, good music, right? Good hangouts. And you're going to see throughout this transit that Venus will sit on the North Node. So it can really highlight having a really prominent friendship or community that you're connecting with. Maybe it's about working with a women's group, connecting with artists. Maybe you feel very inspired through some kind of meeting or connection that you have. And then you will also see that Venus is going to trine Jupiter in your 3rd house at some point. So when that happens, it's about expansive communication. Maybe, you know, reaching out, connecting with your audience, sharing, you know, things that you are feeling, communicating with siblings, short distance trips. And you will also see Mercury come into conjunction with Venus while it's retrograde. Okay, so Venus is you. It's also about health and habits and work. So it's a great time for networking. But I think with Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus, there is a possibility here that some of you guys may need to reconnect to your goals. You need to start really writing down your goals, sharing, you know, more emotionally with people. It can mean that there is a reconnection or reunion. And if you're looking for love and you're a single Taurus rising, it can mean that love can be found, or you could run into somebody from the past, or you could be hearing from somebody from the past, like social media wise. I also think that this is about rethinking for many of you guys, or, you know, revising your group plans, especially if it's connected to travel. That may happen. Network intuitively, watch for new alliances that can form. Community support is so important right now. It's going to boost a lot of your goals, and I hope that you guys are able to connect with like-minded people. In doing so, it's going to kind of give a little bit of ease to Uranus in your 1st house, and I feel like it can help you feel like you're getting a bit of a reprieve from just the sheer amount of like work and having to show up that's been going on recently. Good luck, Taurus. Gemini and Gemini risings. Great transit for you guys. Venus is going to be transiting through Pisces in your natal 10th house of career and reputation. Even in spite of some of the eclipses that are going to happen, you know, in the beginning of March, and the Mercury retrograde that's going to be happening kind of February into March, this is actually really, really good. Venus is going through the part of the skies that's going to be dealing with your career, your status, your reputation. If you are retired, if you're not working, it can mean that there is just a sense of feeling like more comfortable and more in touch with what you love and what you want to do, or who you want to take care of, or who you want to support, or what you're taking responsibility for. So it could be grandkids, it could be hobbies, it could be community connections. And Venus is connected to your 5th house of children, relationships, dating, self-expression, creativity, self-employment, taking chances, and also your 12th house, which deals with what's hidden, subconscious, and kind of behind the scenes. So obviously there's a really strong shift going on in terms of how you're navigating your career over the next 2 months, because there's some Mercury retrograde action in your career house. But I look at this and I go, wow, okay, Venus is gracing your 10th house of career, giving you a lot of professional charm, you know, an opportunity to really kind of show off when it comes to your public image. It will be trining, obviously, Jupiter at some point in Cancer in your 2nd house, which is going to give you guys the opportunity to have some amazing financial luck. Lucky partnership themes, lucky financial themes, good job changes, good relationship changes professionally. And you will also see that Mercury is going to touch on the North Node, and that's your chart ruler. Then Venus will touch on the North Node. So there's this sense of kind of intuitively kind of figuring out how to find your sea legs in terms of your work, or how to get the word out, or how to connect with people, or how to kind of navigate some of these relationships professionally so you can kind of continue to reach the top in your career. I think with Venus coming into conjunction with the North Node, Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus, that's going to be the day that you guys are going to want to watch, Gemini, because likely what you're going to find is that is a huge career reevaluation turning point. And it may showcase creativity for you at work. So I'm predicting for Gemini risings, you guys actually get quite an amazing kind of gift. There's going to be an opportunity for you to get a promotion, make more money, get a higher status, have a job change that's going to feel more in alignment, and it's also going to be better for your wallet as well. But watch for value-aligned opportunities that are going to come out, you know, through this entire period. And obviously, be creative and be willing to kind of show other people what you've got. And if you are self-employed, or you're doing something that's more, you know, entertainment-based, or connecting with younger people, or things that are going to be more speculative, it's like you're taking risks, but those risks might actually start to pay off. Good luck, Gemini. All right, Cancer and Cancer rising, you're going to see Venus going into Pisces, fellow sister water sign, trining Jupiter throughout this transit, so quite positive for you guys. And Venus is going through the 9th house, which is obviously going to be the house of adventure. This is about broadening your horizons. It's about philosophy, education, travel, and obviously the bigger picture, or the bigger meaning of life. It's considered a pretty lucky house. Now, Venus is tied to your 4th house of home and family, maybe relationship past. It's also connected to friendships and social connections and your goals. So when Venus goes into the 9th house, she wants to indulge in spiritual philosophy, foreign travel, education, right? Anything that's going to be about learning about culture, or learning about traveling, or learning about religion, or spiritual things is very much kind of the 9th house Pisces. What you guys are going to see is that the trine to Jupiter is quite wonderful for you guys. It's very fortuitous. I do think that having both of these planets in exaltation, even in spite of Jupiter being retrograde, is going to be very good for you. I could see that materialize for my Cancer risings as personal growth, opportunities to travel, lucky wins legally, prominent connections with people or relationships that could be foreigners or abroad, major positive changes that can be happening when it comes to education, or just kind of your philosophy about life. It's also about learning healthier habits, because Jupiter is tied to health and work. So there can be some lucky things that can be changing with work or with your health if you've been dealing with some health related things or some legal things. And you will also see that Venus is going to come into conjunction with Mercury, which will retrograde. So that's fascinating to me, because that means that you're rethinking your beliefs about love, relationships, values, where you have to live, your home, your family. I would say the tips for my Cancer risings, even though Mercury is going to go retrograde here, so you might see some delays with travel, this is a good time to start doing research about what you do want to study, where you do want to travel, where you do want to go. And I think you're going to have an opportunity to maybe go back to a place that you've been before, that you've been thinking about returning to or visiting, or going back to school. I think that I also feel that there's going to be some inspiring journeys coming, even though there's a delay right now. Watch for that, and watch for faith really deepening, I think, some of your relationships, be that family relationships or relationships that you have in a romantic way. Enjoy that, Cancer. I love that Jupiter Venus trine for you guys. Leo and Leo rising, you guys are going to watch Venus go into Pisces in your natal 8th house. So this is sexy. The 8th house obviously can be a little bit more taboo. It deals with other people's money, taxes, inheritances, psychological things, your partner's money, your investments. And the 8th house represents all of those karmic entanglements that you have kind of like with other people. So whenever planets go through there, they go through a pretty prominent change. And so the sun's going to be there soon, so you're going to feel that change. But I think that the 8th house at its core is the house of intimacy. So the themes here of Venus going into the 8th house is like deep bonds, shared resources, picking up the energy of the 3rd house of communication. So intimacy through communication, transparency, sitting in a therapist's office, digging through financial stuff, having heart-to-heart conversations about debt, budgets, those kinds of things. And Venus is also tied to your 10th house of career. So it's obvious that, you know, you're going to see there's a lot of talking about working together, merging, collaborating. So it can be very financial and like a business sense here as well. I like that it's going to trine Jupiter, although I think for the fire signs, this is not going to be as action-oriented as some of the other signs. It's going to be more deep knowing, intuitive knowing, spiritual healing, closure, you know, kind of washing things away. Like I said, that kind of like baptismal type of energy. You're also going to see that with the trine to Jupiter, it may really influence your dreams, creative dreams, and like anything that deals with financing. So financing creative projects, financing things that deal with film or creativity or self-expression. This can also be, I think, with Mercury retrograde conjunct the Venus in Pisces transit, is also highlighting some pretty definitive changes that might be happening with your money as a result of other people's money. So you'll see like an eclipse in your 2nd house in March. You're going to see a Mercury retrograde in your 8th house. So everything seems to be spelling out. It's about you receiving more, right? Support. I'm seeing lots of like Leo risings that are now getting scholarships to go to school. They're getting their debt canceled. They're getting inheritances. They're getting payouts. They're getting settlements. Suddenly partners are coming into money. And so it's kind of like easing some of the financial strain. But I do think for a lot of you guys, this is going to be about, you know, embracing vulnerability, right? Yes, reviewing joint finances, maybe being some good positive changes with debt or taxes. But I predict this is about really transforming love. And you guys may see investment gains or inheritance, but I think the bigger picture is where some of these things are actually kind of unfolding is bringing you the opportunity to exhale and be like, okay, I can feel safe and secure. You know, now this is kind of getting dealt with. And it's going to give you, I think, a little bit more freedom to finally start doing some of the more kind of things that you're going to see, like traveling, education, and publishing, learning, all that stuff as planets are getting into Aries. I hope it's a good one for you guys. I'm sure it's going to be quite transformative. Definitely reflect on what's happened with the eclipses. Go back and look at the eclipses because it'll give you an idea of what's going to happen. Virgo and Virgo rising, you guys are going to be experiencing Venus entering into Pisces in your opposite sign of the 7th house of relationships. There's nothing I love more than Venus going through, I think, the 2nd or the 7th house, right? Because these are the houses that Venus is comfortable in. Obviously, she's also exalted, so this is particularly good for you guys. In the midst of what may feel like some uncomfortable transits at the end of February going into March, as you know, your chart ruler will retrograde. But I wouldn't fear this retrograde, and I've been telling all my Virgo risings this, even though things have probably been a little tricky in the relationship department in recent years. You're actually going to see that Venus and Mercury moving through the same sign is giving you the opportunity to connect with someone who can be fateful in some sense, that you're meant to meet them, you're meant to talk to them. There can be this unifying aspect, some new love coming in, a really important conversation with an existing relationship, helping really define how you go deeper and support each other more. Remember, all of this is being influenced by Jupiter. So with Jupiter and exaltation, you have to get on the same page about your goals. Maybe you have to socialize and connect with friends to meet new people. Maybe you guys have to be more social together. There is some positive influence there that you're going to see several times as both Mercury and Venus are trining Jupiter. So really watch some of those transits. Now, Venus deals with money, your resources, what you value, what you possess. It's also connected to travel, education, ceremonies, graduations, your belief system, anything that deals with like legal matters. So as Venus is going into the 7th house, you know, astrologers are going to say, okay, Virgo, you're getting ready to meet someone, right? But that's not always the case. You have to look at the chart kind of holistically. But certainly if you're a single Virgo rising and you're looking to meet somebody, Venus is in your 7th, Mercury's in your 7th, it's a good time to get out there. I think for a lot of you guys, this is really saying that it's time to bring in more harmony in relationships. Feeling valued, feeling wanted. Yes, you might feel like You want to, maybe shower your partners with more love or affection, or maybe they're going to be more romantic, more kind of generous with you. But it's also, I think, connected to, like I said, that social expansion, because you're going to see Venus trine Jupiter. So it's about how you can kind of share your love, and you're able to kind of like celebrate with other people or find other couples that you can kind of hang out with. And if single, it's about being with your friends and enjoying some of those relationships, because it's going to be very enriching, even though it may not be romantic at first. I also think that with the Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus is interesting, because it can mean that there's a back and forth that you're doing in a relationship about what is owed to you. And that can be in a relationship sense, in a financial sense. You could be going back and forth about spending money on going on a trip, going back and forth about talking about getting married. There can also be legal kind of negotiations for those of you guys who are separating now that Saturn and Neptune are leaving your 7th house, and you have to kind of come to some kind of peaceful agreement or understanding about how you're handling some of these things. So look at your whole chart. But for many of you guys, I think this is the Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus renegotiating commitments. And that could be with clients, you could be changing therapists, you could suddenly decide you want to see an astrologer, you can decide that you want to, get a prenup, or you want to get a postnuptial agreement. I mean, there's a lot of these things that talk about relationships really being on the tipping point. And even though it's good, it's supposed to be something that's going to bring you more stability, more value, and also better relationships. Now, I would communicate more empathically, especially knowing that Mercury is going to retrograde Venus, especially knowing that this is about reconnecting with relationships and trying to be in tune with other people's emotions. I do predict for a lot of you guys, I think with Mercury conjunct Venus and trines to Jupiter, I mean, you could see some really significant romantic commitments that could strengthen. Talking about getting married or getting engaged. Those of you guys who are discussing whether or not, you're wanting to host parties or celebrations or bringing family together, making big decisions maybe about your goals revolving around home and family. It can also mean that many of you guys are really being a little bit more open to now starting to kind of merge beyond just the relationship, especially as you're seeing Saturn and Neptune go into your 8th house. It could be deeper levels of intimacy, focusing more on how you guys can merge your resources, save, invest, and all of those things as well. So it's definitely going to be ideal to kind of pay attention to what's going on in relationships. And if you're single, watch for people who can come in, because a partner can appear. And most likely it'll be through an introduction to a friend at a party. Perhaps maybe with the Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus, it's about getting closure in a relationship or somebody very prominent coming back to you. Good luck, Virgo. Very interesting for you. Definitely let me know what happens. Think about what happened last spring during the Venus retrograde, because it's very similar in that regard. All right, so for my Libras and Libra risings, you guys are main players in this. As you know, Venus rules your chart, so your chart ruler is on the move. Venus is entering into Pisces, moving into your natal 6th house, and Venus rules you, your body, your appearance, your identity. It's also connected to your 8th house of other people's money, resources, changes, transformations, and intimacy. Oh boy, as a Libra rising, I'm over some of the 6th house stuff. I know it's going to be done soon. Venus in the 6th house, I've seen in a lot of natal charts, right? These are the charts of people who are like, why do I always get the kind of the end of the stick where I'm holding the bag emotionally? Or why am I constantly caring for people? Or why am I making sacrifices? Or why do I get divorced? All that stuff. And Venus in the 6th can bring some of these things up for people. But it's also teaching you that like love and relationships require work. And so the 6th house is about, okay, rolling up your sleeves, figuring out the problem, trying to kind of course correct some of the solutions. But ironically, the 6th house is two things. It's the 12th to the 7th. So it also represents where it's some of the hidden things that are going on in relationships and partnerships that you're now becoming aware of. It can also represent that this is you supposed to be focusing on your health, your habits, your work, maybe your routines, maybe your pets, right? And that this stuff needs to be kind of like dealt with. And I think you're a key player because you're going to see planets that are going to be retrograding coming into conjunction with your chart ruler. So for Libra risings, I would be like, look, it's about, okay, health and work on the outside, but really this is about finding better balanced routines, learning to have more pleasure in your day-to-day, really enjoying some of the changes that's happening with the shifts with your schedule or with your work. Maybe leaning more into holistic practices, foot reflexology, Eastern medicine, saunas, soaks, detoxes, cleanses, and really trying to kind of get like your health in order. Now, it will make several aspects. One is Venus will conjunct the North Node. And so that could be like where destiny is calling for some Libras or Libra risings to be of service, to take on a new job, to, start issuing new services. It can also mean where there's going to be some changes in your health that's going to actually be really positively impacting you psychologically. Then you'll see Venus and Pisces trine Jupiter in your 10th house, which I think is really wonderful. This is going to be about where those balanced routines and getting kind of things in order and kind of following your instincts, where you're making some changes to your routine, allows you to actually make the space to enjoy your career more, to have more career abundance, to have better communication, to be able to feel like you can kind of show up because you're taking better care of your health. I think that with Venus going into the 6th house, I would be revising some of my daily habits. I would be like, do I need to go to the dentist? Do I need to see my doctor? Do I need to get blood work? Do I need to go back to the gym? And also trying to kind of infuse creativity into your everyday work. Now, here's this tricky thing, is that while Venus hits the North Node, it's highlighting, hey, you're being put in a position of, having a destined change with your health or your job that's going to be good. You're going to help people. But then you're going to see Venus come into conjunction with Mercury retrograde. And Mercury rules the 12th house of self-sabotage, people who are, unseen enemies, that's what we call them. Things that might also connect to legal matters or travel or some unexpected changes with your health, which could impact traveling, or some unexpected changes that could happen with traveling that is because of your schedule getting thrown up in the air. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, Libra. I do predict for a lot of you guys that it can improve wellness. I would be taking care of my health and realizing that that is important if you really want to see change happening within your career, particularly emotionally. I also would keep an eye on my pets. I would be really focusing on mental, emotional health and immune system health, and maybe making some changes and really finding ways to incentivize yourself as Venus is going through the 6th house. Like, you may have to say, yeah, I'm going to get a new pair of running shoes so I go back to the gym, or I'm going to make a decision to join, a health spa or a med spa. To incentivize you to do it in a more kind of aesthetically pleasing way. And I think you're going to find improved wellness and also job satisfaction will increase. But a lot of this is going to be emotional and trying to kind of get yourself in order before you go through some of these bigger transits in your 7th house, which is going to be the end of March, kind of April into May, which is very relational things. And I've seen a lot of Libra risings telling me that they're like, oh, my relationship dynamic hasn't been healthy. And like, now I'm focusing more on health. And the more that I do that, I realize that, I'm not aligning with people very well, or relationships are changing. Unfortunately, you may see that. Okay, so let me know what happens, Libra. Keep me updated in the comments. Scorpio rising, arguably one of the better transits for you guys, obviously, because you're going to be seeing some grand water trines, so that's really nice. You really like that Pisces energy. This is the last bit of it here for a bit. You're going to see Venus going into the sign of Pisces in your natal 5th house. So this is going to be obviously the house of romance, creativity, children, taking chances, gambling, self-expression, having fun. For you guys, it is a water sign, so it's friendly. And if you have any Scorpio in your chart, you're going to have some grand water trines, especially if it's kind of like in the 2nd decan, so like 10 to about 20 degrees, you're going to see that the most. Now, Venus is tied to your 7th house of relationships, partnerships, marriage, clients, one-on-one partners, and also your 12th house of what's hidden, subconscious, kind of undoing, private, and it's going into the 5th. So naturally, Venus going into your 5th house is nice because you have your 7th house Lord, which is about committed relationships in the 5th. So it's a little different if you're in a relationship versus if you're partnered, but it does mean that you're seeking more romance, more pleasure, more creativity, more date nights. It also means that you're going to be feeling a little bit more inspired. And this can also be about self-love in the 5th house. This is about kind of like more of a playful love and self-expression. Now, what's interesting is that you're going to see Venus sit on the North Node. So if you're a single Scorpio rising, pay attention. Pay very close attention. Because what you're going to find is that you may actually meet somebody very significant. And I would advise my single Scorpio and Scorpio risings to go to 5th house places. Bars, casinos, places where there's water, places near beaches or pools. Go out and connect where there's music and there's kind of ambiance, right? That kind of stuff, because that's all the 5th house stuff. There could be a really significant meeting. The catch here is that you may have to travel to get there, right? Because you're going to see Jupiter is kind of influencing this. You might have to actually be like, yeah, I'm going on out of town for a weekend, I'm traveling or whatever. Long distance relationships can kind of happen here too. several really interesting aspects are going to happen. So I think the first one is Venus conjunct the North Node, which can be a fated kind of destiny meeting. You're also going to see that it will then trine Jupiter in your ninth. So it can mean that there is risk and there is reward. And it could potentially be for, you know, taking risks in publishing things, taking risks in going on trips, taking risks in starting a course. It can also mean that you've been studying and you've been learning a lot about investments and strategy and cycles, and like something really fortuitous could happen that could help pay for you to, you know, travel if those are things that you want to do. You're also going to see that that's going to bring adventurous growth in relationships as well. Now, Mercury will retrograde in your fifth, and Mercury deals with your partner's money, resources, things that are more hidden. It also deals with goals and friends and others, and it will retrograde and it'll come into conjunction with Venus. So that means that some Scorpio and Scorpio risings are going to hear from exes. You're going to be reevaluating a current relationship. You might be trying to find ways to bring more fun and intimacy and romance and date nights into an existing relationship. It can also mean that there is this need to rethink your passion. So if you want to go back to a creative project, if you want to go back to, you know, something that you didn't complete, if you were painting, writing, you know, creating, filming, you might go back to that. You might take on a creative partner. You might be reassessing whether or not you want to have kids with somebody. That could be coming up too. And then you're going to see that this is also going to then come into a sextile with Uranus in your seventh house, which means that if there is some sudden whirlwind change in a relationship, good or bad, it's going to dramatically change something about your home and potentially about the state of your relationship as well. So for a lot of committed Scorpio risings, it's going to feel like a defining moment where it's like, am I in love with this person? Is this something that's working? You know, can I fix this? Like, is there still an ability to kind of smooth things over? And like, I would encourage a lot of you guys to travel. I think that that would actually really help if that's something that you decide to do. Now, I would say date creatively, have fun, and watch for some of like the sparkles of romance that can kind of come through and some of the creative breakthroughs that can kind of be happening here as well. Good luck, Scorpio. For my Saggies and Sag risings, you guys are going to be experiencing Venus going into the sign of Pisces, moving through your natal fourth house of home and family. So great place to have Venus. I mean, I know that you guys are kind of over some of the Pisces party. I understand. But this is a nice transit because when Venus goes into the fourth house, we can suddenly bring more beauty, harmony, art, you know, social opportunities, connection inward. So the only thing I would say here is that Mercury will retrograde, okay? So some of you guys might be like, I have a family member or a friend coming to stay with me, or I'm bringing in a, you know, a designer, or I'm thinking about, you know, relocating or buying or selling property. And I would say, like, just pump the brakes a little bit because you're going to see some of the eclipse energy and some of the retrograde energy, something is kind of being reworked. So there's going to be a process that's going to be happening for you. Nevertheless, when Venus is in the fourth, family harmony, feeling like, you know, there is a sense of sweetness at home, or feeling that you can kind of host parties, or there can be gatherings or kind of events that can be going on. It can mean that friends are coming from far away to celebrate with you, see you, spend time with you. It can also mean that you're maybe hunting, you know, you're house hunting, or you're looking for the perfect art and things that you can kind of put into your place. Venus also rules your sixth house of pets. So this can mean that some of you guys are spending more time at home with your pets, or maybe you're trying to, you know, redecorate or remodel something, or you're trying to kind of bring people in to kind of fix stuff or open up walls, or maybe put up wallpaper. Pisces does a lot with lighting is what I've seen, and the fourth house is the kitchen. So there can be some stuff that's kind of going on there for you guys. And what you're going to see is Venus is going to make quite a few significant aspects. One of them is to your chart ruler, Jupiter. So Venus going in the fourth house, watch for a woman coming to stay, or changes going on with your aesthetic in your home. And then you're going to see that it's going to trine Jupiter, which is your chart ruler, in the eighth, which is very significant, I think, for you guys when it comes to deep emotional home and family bonds. Maybe you're fixing up your home because you want to sell it. Maybe there is some kind of money that's coming in, and now you're starting to think about how you can improve your home or your family life. It is in the eighth house, so as I've said to the other fire signs, you're going to feel like it's this deep emotional kind of flooding and release of something. So healing family karma, healing some family financial issues, relational issues, that kind of stuff. And I do think that you are also going to see, when Venus is on the North Node, that may be a point in time where you're caring for, taking care of a mother, a sister. Maybe a friend is coming to support you if you're grieving through something, or you've got somebody who's helping you with a home or family kind of dynamic. And there can also be, with Mercury retrograde, Mercury rules your career and your relationships, that you're sitting down with either a partner or your family and you're kind of going, something needs to change. You know, I need to be feeling like I can spend more time at home, or maybe we need to be reassessing whether or not it's time to move, or is there some change going on with the family that's requiring me to move away from work, be more present with what's going on emotionally or with my family, and needing more support of siblings, right? Gemini. It can also mean a spouse. And it can be good things. This isn't scary stuff. This is actually quite positive for you guys, because this is the grand finale of whatever it is you've been trying to shore up while Saturn and Neptune have been in your 4th house. So I've seen a lot of Sag risings that are now going, now I am moving in with a partner, right? Now I am going to another country. Now I am having my kids, you know, all that stuff. And I think that watch the family discussions with Venus conjunct Mercury. You know, it's going to be what's best for everybody involved type of thing. And there might be some group kind of huddles that you're having with family. And also I would say that this is a wonderful time to start thinking about how you want to beautify your space. But if you're in a relationship with somebody, or if you potentially have roommates or you live with family, you're going to have to check with other people. And that's really the Mercury retrograde coming in, that you might buy some things and bring some stuff in that they don't like, right? Or they don't value the same way that you value. But watch for home improvements, watch for ancestral healing, watch for a lot of floods of just feeling very emotionally kind of cleansed. And it can be, Pisces can be kind of mopey and sad. But I think it can be the renewal of something new right on the heels of a really, really big change that's kind of going on with your family. Okay? Let me know, Sag. Let me know. All right, Capricorn and Capricorn rising, you guys are going to see Venus is entering into Pisces. It's going into your natal 3rd house. Friendly to your sign, earth and water like each other. Obviously, the 3rd house is things like your vehicles, your siblings, your neighbors, how you communicate, how you think. It can also be dealing with any connection to your 5th house, which could be children, romantic partners, or creative collaborators, and also your career, reputation, and status through Libra in your 10th house. Now, Capricorn, this is an interesting transit for you, obviously, because all of this is happening right before Venus comes into conjunction with Saturn. So I just want to preface this because I can kind of see what's coming up, that there's about to be some really big changes either to where you're living, with your home. Some of you guys might be retiring. Some of you guys are going to be, you know, moving back home, or you're taking care of family. And this tells me that throughout the next month with Venus going through there, it's really trying to get you to hone in on, what is my responsibility? How can I better communicate? How can I listen more compassionately? What are people trying to tell me? And I think you'll see that through the Mercury retrograde, to be honest with you. Now, the theme of Venus going into the 3rd house is like sweet words, right? Thank yous, love letters, kind of maybe some romantic texts. It can also mean that you're indulging in short distance travel, you're improving a vehicle, you are maybe getting a new gadget. Mercury will go through there, so it's a lot of rethinking. Want the new iPhone, right? Want the new car. Can I afford it? You know, do I want to do that? Does it make sense? And maybe some sense of reestablishing communication with extended family. So it could be aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings, all that stuff. Now, I do think that this is where you kind of get your groove back and you learn how to be a little bit more persuasive in how you're communicating with people. And some of you guys may feel like during this period, you're called to write, blog, share, vlog. It can also mean that you're learning, or there are some creative opportunities that are coming up, especially if you're self-employed or if you have hobbies, working on websites, photos, designs, anything that deals with media that's going to kind of broaden your public image, I think could actually be really good for a lot of you. Now, what's interesting is that you're going to see that this is actually going to conjunct the North Node, so it's going to be fated kind of conversations ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter's in your 7th of relationships, and then it's trining Jupiter. So some of you guys are actually going to have better communication with family. You might go on a short distance trip. You might travel. You might meet someone, right? You can have very important conversations with your spouses about moving or traveling or relocating. It may also mean that if you guys are open to getting outside of your usual haunts, or maybe you're dating in a different way, or you're traveling a little bit, it can open the door to new romance and relationships that can be coming in. So I really kind of show up for that. Now, partnership luck can happen with obviously Venus trine Jupiter, because Venus rules true love and Jupiter is in your 7th of marriage. So there could be conversations about how kids factor into this, or if you want to get married and that kind of stuff. You can also find that with Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus, it's really bringing up like changes to your beliefs about maybe, family, or maybe siblings, or maybe traveling. It could also be about reviewing important documents like visas, passports, legal documents that can be coming up. I've seen that for a lot of like Capricorn and Capricorn risings, and maybe it's about revising ideas, right? And being like, okay, let's renegotiate, or let's find ways to better communicate and like kind of cut through some of the noise. I do think that this is about writing or speaking from the heart. So I predict for a lot of Capricorn risings that there's going to be meaningful connections during this period, and getting on like a short distance trip, going out of town for the weekend, going on a staycation, maybe listening to things that are a little bit more kind of soulful, like when you're traveling, right? Like listening to music and things, or podcasts and stuff on relationships and communication could actually be quite great for you guys. And I think that it's really going to improve just how you communicate and how you kind of get the point across. And if you are looking to move or relocate, as some of these things are kind of indicating, you might be actually starting to experience an area that you might feel like you really kind of resonate with, and it might be a place that you consider going to here shortly. So let me know what happens, Capricorn. I hope it's a great transit for you. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, you guys are going to be experiencing Venus entering into the sign of Pisces, moving through your natal second house. Certainly a house and a sign that it loves to be in. So it's particularly strong for you guys. Obviously, Venus in the second house is going to put a lot of emphasis on values, money, and finances, okay? And you're going to see through the eclipses, that's going to be a big theme. Through the Mercury retrograde, that's a big theme. And the second house is, what is mine? What do I have? What do I value? Money in the bank, cash in hand, things that you collect, that kind of stuff. So Venus is tied to your fourth house of home and property. It's also tied to your ninth house of travel, your belief system, education. It can also mean mentors, legal matters, in-laws. And it's going through the second. So naturally, Venus going through the second house, the sun's getting ready to go through the second house. You guys are coming into like a money-making period. Granted, Saturn and Neptune are leaving. So now that it's leaving your second house, now it's going to start to show you, okay, now you're actually going to start receiving. Now the karma of you guys receiving is going to unlock. But it's more emotional. Do you feel good about making, changes with your finances, your budget? Did you let something go, but now it opens the door to something new? Are you releasing things? That kind of stuff. So as you see Venus go into your second house, the themes are more than just money. It's also about self-esteem, self-worth, abundance. Now you'll see it trine, okay? So it's going to trine Jupiter. So this means that it's going to help expand anything that's connected to work prosperity. I think for a lot of Aquarius and Aquarius risings, you guys are going to go, okay, well, there's a new potential job offer. I'm going to an interview and, I potentially could make more money. So, would I switch departments? Would I take this job? And yes, you could. But it's also highlighting your health, your pets, and your habits. So it could be things like, I'm investing more money in my health. I'm spending money on better dog food. I'm taking them, to the vet. It can also mean that you're spending more money on healthcare or on diagnostics and other things. That could be very much Pisces. Now, Venus obviously will also touch the North Node, which can be a really significant day where there could be an opportunity where, you could make an investment in something that could really change your future trajectory when it comes to, what's going to be happening financially. But I think it's more work related. And if you're retired, it's more community service related and how you can kind of help people. And then you will also see Venus will be in conjunction to Mercury retrograde. Well, Mercury rules other people's money, investments. And as it retrogrades, I think some of the Aquarius risings who have been waiting for some of those things to pay off, or getting insurance payouts, getting tax refunds, getting partners to, pay child support or to pay their cut of something or whatever. Now it's like, oh, it's coming in. And I think you're going to start to see that kind of unfold over February into March, and then you'll have an eclipse in your 8th house. So it's a lot of, finally things are kind of coming to you, but it has not been easy. There's been either some delays with Jupiter retrograde, or there's been some setbacks that have kind of happened, or kind of questioning whether or not you're going to receive it. So watch for better health, watch for, I think, job prosperity, but also watch for this sense of really feeling like you're in alignment and knowing your value and knowing your worth. So if you need to make certain changes at work, or you need to make certain changes with your habits, you're investing in that. You feel solid about that. I also think that I would watch for financial reviews, okay, because Mercury will retrograde conjunct Venus. Perhaps some of you guys are investing in art, beauty. Maybe you're investing in anything that's going to be connected to like paintings. It could also be things that can be older because Saturn is still there. Second house is land. So maybe there can be some reevaluations of property and land that are kind of going up. And I do predict for you guys income boosts and really feeling more aligned with your purchases. Just know that Venus is going to retrograde conjunct Mercury, and Mercury is going to retrograde. So it's the finale of really revising your budget And I think for some of you guys, it's just going to be going after what is owed to you and finally receiving it. And then as Saturn and Neptune leave your second house, you're going to feel a little bit more financially secure. Let me know what happens, Aquarius. I'm excited to see that manifest for you. And last but certainly not least, we've got Pisces and Pisces risings. Very interesting cycle for you guys. Very, very interesting cycle for you guys. One of my lunar returns. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this technique, but you can take like your first and your second and your third lunar return and that like predicts your entire life. And so I always like listen to some of the Pisces stuff and I'm like, it's so weird how much that resonates because one of it for me is a Pisces rising. You're going to feel like the next 2 months is going to be just a lot and not in a bad way. But I'm going to really remind you of what you guys are coming out of, which has been Saturn and Neptune in your sign, which has really been teaching you that on one hand, there is this sense of too much sacrifice, or there is this sense of giving too much away, or maybe not seeing yourself clearly, not choosing yourself, not creating boundaries. Like these things are all now coming up for one big more reevaluation between now and March. Venus going into your sign is great because sure, you're going to take some great selfies. There's this really kind of flowy, etheric mermaid vibe. And I would say, yeah, take the photos, right? Do that. But that's only on the surface. That's the more vain side of Pisces, Venus and Pisces. Really what this is about with Venus being connected to the third house is learning how to communicate in a loving way and learning how to communicate with yourself in a loving way, being in tune with that. It's also picking up the energy of the 8th house, which is other people's resources, intimacy matters, really honing in on what needs to change and transform. And that change and transformation is coming from how you communicate, how you think in your frame of mind. It starts with you, first house. So as Venus goes through the first house, sure, you might say, you know, I'm craving a little bit of getaway time. I'm craving maybe doing some writing. I'm craving going a little bit deeper and doing some research. But it's also going to be kind of reflecting some of the changes that are already happening physically within you. Does that make sense? Because the ascendant is kind of like the rising. So as Venus crosses the first house, you will see personal magnetism increase. You will see that there is a glow up, that you get this once in a year period where there's more emphasis on your appearance and maybe you're communicating, socializing, and connecting with people in a deeper, more profound way. It is also going to meet the North Node. And so I want you to pay attention because there may be like the stream of consciousness, both when Mercury and Venus hit that North Node, where you get the sudden impulse to write or to travel or to do some research, to be more raw, be more vulnerable. And then Venus will come into a trine with Jupiter, which may mean that it's really going to broaden through self-love, creativity, self-expression, romance, children, you know, meeting people, feeling like there is this divine thing that's kind of coming through you and you're really channeling Venus. And then Mercury, your 7th house lord, will retrograde and come into conjunction with your sign. Now, look, early March, you're going to have an eclipse here anyway. So there's some big defining moments going on for Pisces risings and relationships, for all Pisces, really. But that one in particular really strikes me as something that's interesting. It's almost like some Pisces are going to have a situation where in a relationship, right when you have given up, you're throwing in the towel, you're done, you're walking away, somebody's going to come back and they're going to be like, no, wait, I'll fix it, you know, or like, let's make it work. And in other situations, when certain Pisces or Pisces risings have finally moved on and they've healed and they've detached from somebody, that person is going to feel it and they're going to reach back out to you. And they're going to be like, they can almost feel like empathically that you've moved on and like their ego may not be able to deal with it and they're going to kind of come back in. And so really, because the North Node is in Pisces, you know, because for right now, briefly for the next week, Saturn is still in Pisces, Venus is in Pisces, the first house is I choose me, my happiness, Jupiter. And what's going to make me happy, or loving myself, being more creative, being more self-expressive. So I think a lot of you guys are going to find that, yeah, lots of creative joy, opportunities for romance, for pregnancy, certainly with Jupiter receiving trines from Venus. But the Mercury retrograde is about self-reflection and going, can I be me in this relationship? Or can I continue to serve myself if I am continually putting myself on back burner for other people? You really have to embrace your intuition here because now things are going to get real. You're going to see Saturn and Neptune that are going to go into your second house. You have to really stand on your values, on your morals. For some of you guys, it might mean that because you're walking away from certain business partnerships, relationships, jobs, marriages, now it has a whole new meaning because now you have to become more self-sufficient. The good news is you'll want to work, you'll want to do those things, you'll make your own way. But this is that beginning process of going, no, I choose me. even though it might mean it makes things a little bit more difficult, or it's going to be more challenging financially, or, you know, maybe you're just kind of starting to tiptoe into really prioritizing that sense of self-preservation, I think it will materialize as attracting love, but it only stems from how you're loving yourself. And also confidence can soar. You can see communication is better. And I think it's going to be attracting a lot of people in and bringing in a lot of people who are interested in like working with you, collaborating with you, dating you, you know, all of that stuff. But all of it has to resonate with you on an emotional level for that to be able to grow, right? And you'll see what I'm talking about as you start to see the eclipse that comes in March and the Mercury retrograde. You yourself with Venus retrograde, with Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus, some Pisces and Pisces risings are going to crack and they're going to reach out to people. And then other Pisces are going to have people reach out to them to get closure. And that might be what you need to heal something within you so you can really feel like you can open yourself up to love again, right? So enjoy the Venus transit. I think it's always great to see Venus go through your first house, but it's especially good when you see it in harmony with your chart ruler. This is about choosing joy, Pisces. Good luck. All right, guys. Well, obviously that was the Venus and Pisces kind of video that I had for you. I hope you guys liked it. I hope that you guys found it inspiring and give you a little bit more insight on what to expect over the next couple of weeks. Obviously, from February 10th to March the 6th is when we're going to see this transit taking place. This is all about diving in with an open heart and obviously keeping your intuition almost as your anchor as we go through this. Thank you guys so much for watching my channel, for liking and giving me a thumbs up, for subscribing and for commenting. It really helps the channel grow, and I appreciate you guys so very much. Please leave me your comments. I love to hear how this manifests, and I love reading your guys' comments. I try to get back to all of them, but I do read them, and especially as some of my videos kind of unfold over time, you guys give me feedback. So please do enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Enjoy the sweetness of Venus and Pisces. I hope it's a good one for all of us, because obviously destiny and love is calling. And I'll catch you guys back here on Thursday very soon. Take care.